Welcome back. Alright, so today we're going to be fixing our boosters a bit more. So last time I left you, we made this nice kind of background, but today we're going to make it so that when you push a booster button, not only does that background come up, but it also pauses the timer. And if you click somewhere that isn't the board, it goes back. And this time, so we can't make any moves, but if we click the board, it adds to our timer. So let's jump right in. Hey everybody, welcome back. I know it's been a while, but I have not been idle in my time away. So we're going to kind of take stock of where the project currently is, what needs to be done, and then there are some wish list goals that were put up by Discord member Anthro7 and Discord member King Cobra and a few others that I'm going to end up going through. I won't do that in this video, but that's kind of the plan of finishing out this series so that we can kind of have a good, nice working prototype. We're pretty close to having a good working prototype. So it's been a while for me. You might be watching this in the future and it might have been no time at all. So what I want to do is kind of take stock of everything and take a look at what we need to do. So the last thing that we were working on were the boosters. So if I hit play here on the main game window, I have a booster in the bottom. When I press the booster button, the background kind of fades as a way of communicating to the player that the booster is active. And if the booster is active, so I can move without the booster being active. Good lord, that was an easy challenge. We need to make sure that that timer stops when the booster is active. We also want to make sure that we can't move, which currently we can't, so that's good. But it's also not doing anything. So if I turn on the booster and then I click on the board, nothing's happening. So let's start by making the booster actually affect the game. So currently if I go to my bottom UI here, I want to go to the node and the booster is connected to bottom UI booster. Booster active false, booster active true. So when we set the booster active to be true, we want to also pause that timer. So our update counter. So let's create a quick little variable here to check to see whether or not we're in the booster state, essentially. And if we are, actually we already do that. We have booster active. So in our timer then, which I just saw, there we go, update counter. We'll only update the counter if not booster active. So we're only going to have that countdown if we're not in the booster stage. So I'm going to save that. And let's see what that little change does. So timer's going, timer's not going. And I want to make sure that when I go out of the booster stage, that the timer picks up where it left off. Okay, so that's not too bad now. Now let's figure out a way to know if we've clicked inside the board somewhere. So in our grid script here, and one thing I'm going to be doing too as I go along, and I might as well do it now, is just adding some comments to the script to describe what it is and what it does for the future. So I'm going to go back into distraction-free mode here. I meant to do that as soon as I open the script. So each script, when I open it, I'm going to be adding this. So let's start with this one. Okay, there we go. I've got a quick little description of what the game manager is. Now, what I want to do next is, I already made a method in the grid to tell me if I clicked somewhere that is inside the grid. And the way I'm envisioning this working, and you might envision this differently, is when I press the booster button, I don't want the booster to work if I'm pressing somewhere here. Like if I'm pressing somewhere that isn't part of the booster, I want to go back out. Currently, I only go back out if I press the booster button again. So I want to have something to tell me if I'm clicking inside this board area. And I already made a function like that inside the grid to check to see if a specific pixel coordinate is within our grid. So I'm going to be using that and communicating back and forth from the game manager and the grid in order to know if what I've clicked on is inside the grid. So to do that, let's find the exact function I need to in the grid that allows me to do that. Also, while I'm here, I'm going to be cleaning some stuff up. So I have this counter value stuff left over from a few videos ago. I'm going to clean that out, and then, yeah. So the function I'm looking for right away is process. And in the process function, we're checking to see if we can move touch input. And if we can't move, then we're going to emit some information to the board, and then the board can decide if that was booster information, like if it's in the booster state, it can do with that information whatever it wants to. So I'm going to make a new function here that I'm going to call booster input. Or actually, let's not call it booster input, that's too specific. Let's say that this is extra input. So it's input when the board isn't currently stable. Now to do this, I'm going to make a new function for my extra input. So function extra input. And what I want this to do is check to see if there's a touch on the board. And if there is, I want to emit that information to the game manager as a vector2. So I want to do is action just pressed UI touch if is in grid pixel to grid ... So I'm going to grab these two lines here because I'm feeling lazy tonight recording this. So let's copy that, and in my extra input I'm going to paste it there. I'm going to add a pass so that it doesn't yell at me immediately. And what I want to do is emit a signal to the grid that there was an input there. When the grid receives that signal, not the grid, the game manager. When the game manager receives that signal, it can decide what to do with that information, whether it should process it or not based on what state it's currently in, and whether or not the booster is active in this case. So way up here. So I've got booster stuff. And I don't think I need that booster type here anymore, but for now, I'm still going to make a signal. So we'll call this signal, we'll call this extra input, just in case I want to use it for something else. I can't foresee what I would be using the extra input for right this instant, but I'm certain that there are probably situations where I want to have that input. So I want to, let's store that information instead of checking for it the way I am right now. So let's make a var temp position equals pixel to grid global mouse position. That's kind of a painful way that I did that there, but I was still learning when I started making this tutorial. And look how much I know now. Alright, and then we want to see if is in grid temp position.x temp position.y. What am I? Oh, thought I was making a ternary statement and I'm not. If is in grid. I thought that's how is in grid worked. Let's find out. I've used is in grid in a bunch of different things. Yeah, it returns true or false. Oh, but it needs to be a grid position. So it needs to be a vector 2. So I can just easily change it back to temp position instead of needing to do the X and Y stuff. I must have fixed it at some point in time. I thought I still had it working poorly. Still thinks it's the ternary if. Is that because of this? Yep, it totally is. Pixel to grid. Okay, there we go. Now, vector 2. Let's do this. I know this is probably riveting, watching me make sense of code that I wrote literally a year ago, but we're good now. All right, so if is in grid, we're going to emit a signal. And the signal we're going to emit is extra input, and we're going to pass the temp position. Actually, let's send just true. And then we won't have an else for now, but we could add an else as part of this extra input at some point. Actually, let's add the else. Else emit signal. That way, if we don't touch on the grid, yeah, okay. I swear I've recorded this video 3 times, but this is my 3rd time, but this is the first time it occurred to me to do it this way. The first time I did it this really complex way, and the second time was less complex but more rambly, and I feel like I'm being rambly now. So let's go to our grid, node, our signals. We're going to connect extra input to the game manager, and when we're receiving extra input, this is going to take in a true or false value. So I'm just going to call it is valid input. We're going to say if is valid input and booster active, else if not is valid input. So if it's not a valid input, meaning if they click somewhere else, and booster active, then we're going to, let's just call that on bottom UI booster function, since it does all the stuff we want it to do. All right, let's try that. So if I hit play here and I bring this up, cool. Nice. So now this pass statement needs to be filled with some function that does what the booster wants it to be. So let's leave that as a separate function. And let's take this out of these signals here. So let's do function booster function. And then we'll say, so when you're setting the booster active, are we setting a type with it? No. So bottom UI booster, I thought that was emitting, when it emits the signal, I thought it was emitting the type. It is. So what we can do then in our game manager here is we need to make sure that we're receiving that type. And I'm actually surprised, oh hey, we have been getting errors from that. Method expected their arguments. Hey, let's fix that. So let's do booster type. Too few arguments. Oh, and we'll pass in, I don't know, null. So if booster active and board stable, if not booster active and board stable, then we're going to say we need to have a little variable for what kind of booster we're currently using. So did I already set that up? Nope. So we've got var booster kind, or we'll call it current booster. There we go. And then when we're setting the booster active here, current booster equals booster type. And then instead of passing in a null down here, we'll pass in current booster. And also, just to make this go right around. We'll say current booster equals an empty string. And let's make it equal to an empty string to start. Current booster equals an empty string. Alright, cool. Nice. Now, the function I just made, I called booster function. And this won't need an argument since the game manager should already know what the current booster is. So we'll say if current booster, I think I called it add to counter, but let's make sure, going back into the bottom UI, no, I actually want to be in the booster script. So those are the scenes. I want the script. I just want to make sure I'm calling it the right thing. So booster type add to counter, there we go. Add to counter. So back in my game manager here, if type is add to counter, then I'm going to say current counter plus equals 10. And then I'm going to set counter info. Current counter. There we go. Now I'll have to create some other else if statements. So elif current booster equals, what were the other boosters called? Color bomb and destroy piece. Color bomb and elif current booster equals destroy piece. And I'm going to add another just if then check here. Oh, these need to be double equals. There we go. Because we're checking for value, not changing assignment. I'm only going to do this if booster is active. And then I'll just indent all of that inside of there. Alright, cool. Now I want to add just a quick little debug here. So after we do all of that, I want to print current booster. There we go. So let's go out of here. Let's hit play. Okay, we're getting all kinds of errors here. Calling method from signal booster. Oh, for some reason I didn't. That's weird. So I'm going to copy this and paste it there. It should be booster1.type. Okay. Add to counter. Sweet. Alright. I want to make sure it's only adding to the counter if, like, it's not going to go over what the counter can possibly be. So, what did I call it? I call it max counter. Counter, board variables, max counter. So if current counter is greater than max counter, and then current counter is equal to max counter. There we go. All right, let's hit play. Nice. Now the other thing I want to happen is after we do this, I want to call that booster UI function again to turn the booster off. So on bottom UI booster, we'll call it with the current booster, but that should make it so that it's not spammable like it is right now. So bam. Nice. All right, cool. Now, a few things we have to do in order to make this work even better. First, if we take a look at the way our boosters are, right now they're hard-coded. So, good lord, this is a bit messy. And I said I was going to be commenting on all my scripts as I opened them. So let me comment this one really quickly. Okay, there we go. Now I don't need the ready function, so I'm going to get rid of that too. And I don't need the process function here, so I'll get rid of that. In the bottom UI, nope, it's not bottom UI, it's Booster Manager that I want to open. Booster Manager, there we go. In the Booster Manager, and since I opened a new script, I'm going to comment this one too, just a moment. Okay, there we go. And let's get rid of the process delta. And right now we're automatically making them add to counter. We're going to have to come back and fix this when we continue with the boosters so that we can choose which boosters we want to have per level. And you can go even further and make those be things that the player can earn as they play through the game. But for now, we've got our boosters working a bit better than they were. So we've got our add to counter. The two other functions we'd want to do before we go too much further. Color bomb, we'd want to emit a signal to tell the board to turn a specific piece into a color bomb. And destroy piece, we'd want to do the same, to emit a signal to tell the board to turn a piece, or to destroy a piece and then do all the refill stuff. I'm not going to do that right now. I will, however, in the next video, show you what I did with this. I'd like you to try that yourself because we already did the logic for it. It's all still in the grid script if you want to find it there and try to replicate it. Only this time we'd have to emit a signal with a board position as a vector 2 to the grid. So there we go. Next time we're going to take a look at making these choosable from the menu, and yeah, then we'll fix any other bugs, and then we'll start addressing some of those wish list items that Anthro7, King Cobra, and other Discord members have been wanting. So, if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments down below. Otherwise, you can find me on Twitter, where I've been posting more often. You can join my Discord. I've got a link to that in the description below. You can find the assets for this project on itch.io. And you can also subscribe to my Patreon. I hope everybody out there has themselves a wonderful day.